Jason Statham walked into a bar straight in London to have a drink and meet an important man, Michael. Jason wanted to retire as a mercenary to eliminate enemies, but Michael did not want to let such a strong fighter go, so he decided to give him one last contract, which became a significant test for Jason and even a trap from Michael. Like and subscribe to the channel, so you will show how you like this story. London. Late evening. The rain is pouring down, drumming on the roofs of cars and the wet asphalt. Fog swirls in the alleys, the light of the street lamps is dimly reflected in puddles. Somewhere in the distance you can hear the wail of a police siren, but here, in the bar, Black Fox, the familiar atmosphere reigns, muffled rock and roll from an old machine gun, quiet conversations, the clink of glasses. Jason Statham sits at a corner table, swinging a glass of whiskey in his hands. He is wearing a dark turtleneck and a leather jacket. His gaze is tired, but tenacious. Opposite him is Michael Reed, his old friend and informant, a graying man in a shabby jacket. "So that's it?" asks Michael, throwing a nut into his mouth. "Decided to leave?" "Decided," Statham answers shortly, taking a sip. "Enough. For 20 years I've been running around cities, killing people who will not be mourned. I've earned enough. It's time to put an end to it." Michael grins and shakes his head. "The last contract is always a trap, brother. I know people like you. You think this is the last one, and then freedom. But in the end, either a bullet in the forehead, or a new order." Statham silently looks into his glass, then looks up. They are cold, steely. "This contract really is the last one." Michael sighs, pulls a folded piece of paper from the inside pocket of his jacket and puts it on the table. Victor Corvin. Former mafia financier. Under federal protection. They say he has too much information, and some do not want him to talk. Statham takes the piece of paper and unfolds it. Photo, a man in an expensive suit, polished, with a smug grin. Below is the address, a brief dossier. "He's hidden in a bunker under an old factory on the outskirts of London," Michael continues. "Personal security, electronic security systems. You can't get to him that easily." Statham puts the paper aside, finishes his whiskey, then stands up, putting on his jacket. "I'll figure it out." "Jason," Michael takes his hand. "Are you sure? The devil knows who exactly hired you for this job. Maybe they'll want to get rid of you later, too. Everything is under control." Statham steps out into the rain, zips up his jacket, and walks to a parked Aston Martin. The doors open with a quiet click, he gets in, starts the engine. The headlights tear the wet pavement out of the darkness. The car smoothly moves into the night. An hour later. The outskirts of London. The Kingsman steel plant, long closed, gapes with broken windows and rusted gates. You can hear the rumble of passing cars in the distance, but it's quiet. Too quiet. Statham parks his car a few blocks away and gets out. His movements are precise, measured, he knows what he's doing. No emotion. Just cold calculation. He walks around the perimeter of the building, noticing the cameras on the corners. The security doesn't skimp on security. 3 men at the front entrance, 2 more on the roof. Machine guns, radios, bulletproof vests. There are clearly more inside. Statham moves into the shadows, takes a pistol with a silencer from his pocket. He approaches the back entrance, an old metal door with a combination lock. He pulls out a hacking device, plugs it in. 20 seconds later, a quiet beep sounds, the lock is open. He slips inside. A narrow hallway, the smell of damp and machine oil. Doors on either side, one of them slightly open. Inside, a guard is scrolling through his phone, sitting on a box of ammunition. Silently, like a shadow, Statham appears behind him, covers his mouth with one hand, sharply twists his neck with the other. The body is carefully lowered to the floor. He takes the radio from the guard, sets it to silent mode, hides it in his pocket. He moves on. He needs Corvin. The door ahead is massive, with a digital lock and a palm scanner. He examines the walls and notices a ventilation shaft. Climbing onto the boxes, he unscrews the grate and makes his way inside. The tight space, the metal walls muffle the sounds from outside. He crawls forward, hears voices. They say he's already in the city, a male voice says. If he shows up, we'll eliminate him on the spot. The bosses want us to do more than just take him out, another replies. They want to make sure he doesn't leave alive. Statham freezes. He realizes, this isn't just a contract. This is an ambush. The dim light of the lamps barely penetrates through the dusty ventilation grills. The narrow metal walls of the shaft create a feeling of a closed space, the air is saturated with the smell of machine oil and old wiring. Jason Statham moves forward silently, each movement precise, verified. Voices are heard ahead. He freezes, pressed against the cold metal. So, he's already in the building, a muffled male voice, hoarse from cigarettes. Most likely. The cameras at the back entrance detected movement, but the signal was cut off. The boss said, if he shows up, destroy him on the spot, another, younger, with a noticeable London accent answers. Statham listens. Judging by the sound, 2 men are standing in the room below him. He carefully approaches the grate, slightly moving it to the side. Below is a storage area. Wooden boxes, scattered tools, metal shelves with weapons and ammunition. 2 armed men stand by a table with maps and a radio transmitter laid out on it. Jason assesses the situation. Both are armed with machine guns. The distance to them is about 5 meters. He checks the pistol with a silencer, takes a knife, then takes a deep breath. In a matter of seconds, he pushes the grate open and jumps down. The landing is soft. Before the guards can react, he moves forward. One blow with the knife, and the first one falls, clutching his throat. The second one makes a sharp move towards the machine gun, but Statham is faster. A muffled shot, and the body goes limp. The room is silent again. He looks around, noticing a map of the building on the table. Corwin's bunker is located below, through a long corridor with reinforced doors. He takes the machine gun of one of the guards, checks the ammunition. Then he goes out into the corridor. The corridor is narrow, the walls are lined with steel sheets. The dim lights on the ceiling flicker, casting ominous shadows. There's a faint smell of gunpowder in the air. Ahead is a massive door with an electronic lock. The security camera swivels, tracking the movement. Jason takes out the hacking device and plugs it into the panel. A few seconds later, the system is hacked, the lock clicks. He slowly opens the door. Inside is a spacious room. A large monitor on the wall, a leather chair, a table with a laptop. And in the middle of it all is Victor Corvin. In an expensive suit, with a glass of wine in his hand, he turns around, not looking surprised. Jason Statham, he says, smiling. I knew you'd come. Then you know why I'm here, Statham replies, raising his weapon. Corvin calmly takes a sip of wine and sets the glass on the table. Do you really think you're going to kill me that easily? You're not, Jason. You're trapped. At that moment, armored shutters descend from the ceiling, blocking the exit. Hidden panels in the walls open, and automated turrets emerge. Corwin grins. You've been in this business too long not to know you've been betrayed. Tell me, who hired you? Michael? Someone you knew? Statham doesn't answer. He's assessing the situation. The door is locked, the turrets are armed, but there's a chance. He glances quickly at the cable runs along the wall. If we destroy the control unit. Listen, Jason, I can offer you more than your employers. Much more. Working for me means living. Refusal means death. Choose. Statham doesn't respond with words. In one motion, he kicks the table, flipping it over and taking cover behind it. The turrets start firing, but he manages to get his pistol out and hit the control panel with a well-aimed shot. Sparks, a short circuit, and the weapon falls silent. Corwin reaches for his hidden gun in a panic, but Statham is faster. He grabs his arm and twists it, making the man cry out in pain. Then he yanks him to the floor. "Who ordered me?" he asks coldly. "You're not getting out of here anyway." "Name." The pressure on his arm increases. "Langley," Corwin breathes out. "CIA. They want you out. You're too dangerous." Statham pauses for a second, processing what he's heard. And then a quick blow. Corwin loses consciousness. Now he has an answer. But getting out of here is a whole other story. The dim light of the emergency lights illuminates a narrow corridor painted a dirty green. It smells of dust, metal shavings, and something burning. Jason Statham moves quickly, every move calculated, every sense heightened. He knows that time is short. They are already following him. Footsteps sound behind him, heavy, calculated. They are not in a hurry. They are sure that they have him trapped. Mistake. Jason freezes near the turn, holding his breath. The first opponent appears from around the corner, a massive one, with a bald head and tattoos on his neck. In his hands is a knife. There is confidence in his eyes. He does not know who he is facing. Statham moves first. Sharp as a lightning strike, he grabs the opponent's hand, twists his wrist, causing the knife to fall. A quick movement of the elbow to the face, the crunch of a breaking nose. The man falls to the floor, letting out a muffled groan. The others are already here. 3. One is armed with brass knuckles, another with a baton, the third is clearly an unarmed fighter, but with a predatory expression on his face. Experienced. 4 against 1. In a normal situation, it's a problem. For me, it's a warm-up. The first one rushes forward, waving his baton. Jason steps aside, the blow to the wall is a dull sound. He seizes the moment, strikes the solar plexus, then kicks the knee. The opponent falls, clutching his chest, convulsively gasping for air. The knuckle duster is already here. A blow to the temple, but Statham manages to dodge, feeling the metal slide millimeters from his skin. He catches the opponent by the wrist, squeezes with all his might. Crunch. Scream. The knuckle duster falls. A palm strike to the Adam's apple, the enemy falls to the floor, clutching his throat. The last one remains. Experienced. He takes his time, moves smoothly, assesses the situation. A silent understanding is established between them. This one knows what he's doing. This will be interesting. The enemy feints to the left, then attacks sharply from the right. Jason parries, but feels the force of the blow. This guy knows how to fight. For a few seconds they exchange blows, every move is thought out, every step is precise. The adrenaline is off the scale. Then Statham finds the moment. A feint, a trick, the enemy opens up. A hard blow to the temple, then a powerful uppercut to the jaw. The man falls, slowly sinking to his knees, and then to the floor. Silence. Only heavy breathing and drops of blood falling onto the concrete floor. Jason adjusts his jacket, takes the gun of one of the fallen opponents. He moves on. The job isn't over yet. He enters the building through the service entrance, moving smoothly, like a shadow. His breathing is even, his pulse is calm. He is used to such operations. Narrow corridors stretch before him, lit by dim lamps flickering in time with the old wiring. The smell of damp and hot metal mixes with the hum of working equipment. He acts quickly. The guard on the left does not even have time to turn around, a powerful blow to the throat deprives him of breath, and the subsequent movement of the hand sends his body to the floor. The second, standing by the door, manages to grab the radio, but Jason is already here. An instant blow with the edge of the palm to the temple, the guard falls unconscious. Statham creeps further. His goal is the server room. He opens the door, his gaze sliding over the equipment. He takes out a flash drive, inserts it into the port and starts copying. The screen fills with ticker lines. Time passes. But then comes the alarm. The siren breaks the silence, filling the corridors with red light. Jason rips out the flash drive, hides it in his pocket and is about to hide, but senses a threat. The corridor ahead is blocked by two people. Both are in black tactical gear, with machine guns at the ready. They are not ordinary guards, they are professionals. "Finish him off," one of them says. The first burst from the machine gun pierces the air, but Jason is already hiding behind a column. He notices a ventilation grate above him, but the way to it is too long. He will have to fight. Instant calculation. One moves forward, the second covers. Jason makes a feint, forcing the first to shoot, a moment of confusion, and he is already there. The blade flashes in the dim light. The knife, snatched with a lightning movement, plunges right into the throat. The scream gets stuck in the blood, the body falls to the ground. The second fighter reacts, he drops his machine gun and takes out a knife. They engage in a duel. Jason sees cold calculation in his opponent's eyes. He makes no unnecessary movements, waiting for the moment to attack. An exchange of blows. Jason blocks the attempt, steps aside. The narrow corridor makes it difficult to maneuver, but he uses this to his advantage. A false step to the left, and when the opponent lunges, Jason catches his wrist, twisting the knife. Crunch. A cry of pain. He turns the fighter around, pushes his face into the wall, fixes his neck. A quick, sharp movement, the characteristic sound of breaking vertebrae. The body sags limply. The sirens continue to howl. Jason understands, there is little time. He picks up the weapon, checks the flash drive in his pocket again. The job is not finished. He moves on. The main hall of the bunker greeted Jason with a resounding silence. The space was spacious, but devoid of comfort, metal walls, a low ceiling with flickering lights, the smell of oil and gunpowder in the air. Surveillance screens were located along the walls, and in the center of the room was a massive table covered with folders, laptops and weapons. At the table stood Victor Corvin, a tall man with gray temples and a keen gaze. In his hands he held a glass of whiskey, slowly shaking the amber liquid. Next to him were three bodyguards. All in black tactical gear, armed with pistols and machine guns. Jason clenched his teeth. It was all too right. Too predictable. "You think I'm the victim?" Corvin grinned, taking a small sip. "No, Jason. You are the target." He nodded to his men. The next moment, the guards raised their weapons. Jason dodged to the side, hiding behind a metal container, as the room exploded with gunfire. Bullets sparked off the walls, shell casings clanged on the floor. Jason's heart was beating fast, but his mind was cool. He knew he'd been lured. The question was how to get out. He pulled out a smoke grenade, pulled the pin, and threw it into the center of the room. A thick gray fog began to fill the space, blurring the outlines. "Find him," Corwin ordered. The footsteps were muffled, and Jason used this to his advantage. He moved silently, like a shadow, around his opponents. The first bodyguard noticed the movement too late. Jason stabbed him in the neck, sharply and silently. The man wheezed and collapsed. That left two. "Don't shoot blindly," one of them barked. "He wants us to give up our positions." Experienced. Problem. Jason moved closer to the wall, holding the gun in both hands. The second guard made the mistake of stepping out from behind cover, trying to find a target. One shot was enough. The bullet hit him in the forehead, causing his body to sag lifelessly to the floor. The last bodyguard knew he was alone. "Corwin, get out!" he shouted, stepping back. "I'll hold him off." But Corwin wasn't waiting for an order. He was already heading for the door leading to the garage. Jason cursed. He couldn't let him get away. He moved forward, but immediately felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. The bullet slid across his skin, tearing through the fabric of his jacket. Warmth spread through his body. Hurted, but not fatally. He gritted his teeth and raised his gun. The last assailant took cover behind an overturned table. Jason feinted to the left, then abruptly moved to the right, rounding the corner. One well-placed shot was enough. Now Corwin. Jason lunged for the door, feeling his injured arm growing heavier. He stepped over the bodies and walked out into the garage. The garage was a large hangar with concrete walls. Several cars were parked in rows, but Jason's gaze immediately picked out the target, a black Aston Martin. Corwin was already there, fiddling with the keys, cursing the ignition. "Victor," Jason said, pointing the gun. Corwin froze. He turned around slowly, with a crooked smile. "You think it's that simple?" There was weariness in his voice. Jason took a few steps forward. He knew Corwin was stalling. "Who else is in the game?" he asked. Corwin chuckled slightly. "Everyone. You've stepped on too many tails. Now the hunt is on you." Jason nodded slowly. He already understood that. But the answers were important. "The customer. The name. You think I'll tell you?" Corwin shook his head. "It doesn't matter anymore." There was a moment of silence. They both knew what was coming. Jason fired first. The bullet tore through Corwin's chest, causing him to stagger back. He wheezed, clutching at his wound, and slowly sank to the hood of the car. "You know," he whispered, breathing hard. "They'll find you anyway." Jason didn't answer. He walked over, bent down, and searched the body. Inside the jacket pocket, there it was. A small hard drive. Incriminating evidence, for sure. He slipped it into his pocket and looked up. Sirens. The police cars were already howling in the distance. They were getting closer. Time to go. Jason took one last look at Corwin's dead body, then turned and got into the Aston Martin. He started the engine and stepped on the gas. The tires squealed as the car pulled away. In the rearview mirror, he could see the black SUVs approaching the bunker. And he knew the game was just beginning. Jason hid in a dark corner of the factory garage, watching two guards discuss the latest developments. Their voices were muffled by the clanking of metal and the noise of machinery. "You think he's still around?" one asked, checking the bolt of his machine gun. "Who knows? Corwin's dead, and that bastard's still out there," the other replied, looking around. "They say he's like a ghost. Appears out of nowhere and kills everyone." Jason moved forward silently. One precise blow, and the first guard sank to the floor without making a sound. The second barely had time to turn around before Jason slammed his face into the metal door. The guard collapsed unconscious. He made his way to the table where the laptop lay. Turning it on, Jason quickly found the files he needed. Looking at the screen, he frowned. The information was much more valuable than he expected. Suddenly, the click of a reloading gun was heard behind him. "Here you are," a cold voice said. Jason spun around, slamming the chair he was hiding behind. The bullet whistled past him a millimeter. He lunged forward, stabbing his opponent in the throat. A furious fight ensued, blows flying at lightning speed. Jason grabbed his opponent's arm, twisted it, and pointed the gun at his chest. Shot. Silence. Jason picked up the laptop, took one last look at the body, and disappeared into the shadows, merging with the darkness of the factory. Jason raced through the dark corridors of the plant, holding the laptop he had obtained at the cost of several deaths. He knew that the information stored in it would change many things. The files contained evidence of illegal deals between the Grey Tech Corporation and influential politicians. Bribes, weapons shipments, the elimination of unwanted people, it was all documented. And most importantly, one of the entries mentioned Michael, his client, the one who hired him to carry out this mission. Now Jason had an ace in the hole, but also a new enemy. He ran out of the building, ducking behind a pile of metal beams at the last moment. His ears were ringing with the footsteps of his pursuers. They did not know that he had prepared a parting gift for them. A few days before the operation, Jason planted several powerful C4 charges around the perimeter of the plant, connected to a remote detonator. Now the moment had come to use them. He shoved the laptop into his backpack, took out a miniature remote control and pressed a button. A loud explosion shattered the silence of the night. Fire erupted from windows and holes in walls like a raging beast breaking free from its cage. Metal structures clanged as concrete shook and a wave of heat swept across the area, making Jason squint. Screams and chaos engulfed those trapped inside. The factory was turning into a pile of burning rubble, leaving no trace. Jason didn't linger. He knew he had to find a reliable journalist who could leak these files. He knew Michael wouldn't let this go. There was a new game ahead, but now he had the cards. He started the stolen motorcycle and sped off into the night, leaving the ruins of the factory behind. In the rearview mirror, he could see the glow of the fire, the flaming past he was leaving behind. Now he knew where to go next. He knew that victory would come to the one who made the first move.